Yo, I've been watching the news a lot nowadays. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but every time I turn around, there's a fucking teacher in the news for fucking a student. Where the fuck were these teachers when I was in school? Shit, fucking a teacher, that was the only thing in school that I failed at. They don't make kids like they used to. Shit, I saw on the news, I think it was New Jersey or some shit. You know, I guess the teacher, she had a fucking dildo in the classroom. And, you know, of course, you know, it fell out of a bag or something by accident, supposedly. But, yo, the mother was talking to the fucking news, and she was like, my daughter, you know, is traumatized. She keeps waking up in the middle of the night, having nightmares and crying. The daughter was like fucking 11 years old or some shit. I found myself in a similar situation when I was like 7. My parents, you know, they taught me how to spell and like read and shit before I even started kindergarten. And the teacher, she was talking to her fucking assistant and shit. She was talking about some fucking dude she met the other night. And she was like, yeah, he had a really big D-I-C-K. So I raised my hand. The teacher said, yes, KimTaeJun. I said, M-E-T-O-O. So I went over to her at the class, and she was like, oh, my God, I didn't know you could spell. I said, yeah, there's a lot of shit you don't know. But let me tell you one thing that I know. I ain't doing shit for the rest of the year, and I know that I'm going to get a fucking A, or your ass is F-I-R-E-D. Yeah, so, you know, I wasn't too happy with my love life in elementary school. Yeah, I was talking to this one woman. She was like 22, and I was like 9. And she said, don't even talk to me unless you have at least 12 inches in your pants. I said, 12 inches? I'm 9 years old. She said, oh, well. I said, come on, bitch. I'm in fucking 3rd grade. I'll give you the rest later. There aren't too many men on this planet with a 12-inch penis. Of course, there's some fucking freaks of nature out there. You know, motherfuckers be born with fucking 6 toes and shit. So a 12-inch penis is not exactly impossible. But what would be impossible is finding a woman willing to fuck you. Yeah, you know, I was raised by my grandparents, and, you know, my grandfather, he was my wingman. But, you know, sometimes we kind of clash because we weren't always on the same page, you know, because of the difference in the generations. I got some hair from this bitch one time, and I came back. My grandfather was like, so how'd it go? I said, it was terrible. He said, how can that be terrible? I said, she bit me. He said, what do you mean bite? Like, with her teeth? I said, with what else can she possibly bite me with? He said, why would you tell her to do that? I said, I didn't tell her. She just did it. He said, so where'd you bury her? I said, I didn't. I said, what'd you do? Leave her on the side of the road? I said, no, I left her in the house. He said, how you gonna kill somebody and leave them in the house? I said, I didn't kill her. He said, you said she bit you. I said, she did, but I didn't fucking kill her. He said, you know what? I don't understand you boys nowadays. Yep, that sounds about right. Back in the 50s, you just straight up kill bitches because they don't know how to suck dick. And, you know, my grandfather, though, he was also real protective. So, you know, I was fucking this chick up the block. So I used to try to tell him where I was going, but I would drop hints. I didn't want to be worried, like, when I disappeared for a while. So I used to tell him, like, hey, you know, I'm going up the block, right, to the girl house down the street. You know, I'm going to help her with something. I was trying to be careful, you know, when I told him, because, you know, that particular time, my grandmother happened to be right there. He said, you always going over there working. What are you going to do? I said, Grinner, I'm going to help her with something. He said, what you going over there to work for? She got a fiance. I said, yeah, exactly. Her fiance is not there, and I'm going to help her with something. He said, is she paying you? Help her with what? So finally, I just gave up. I said, Granddad, I'm going to lay some pipe. He got mad. He banged his fist on the table. He said, what you doing going over there laying pipe? You let that man lay his own pipe. So I had enough. I just threw my hands up. I said, you know what? I can't deal with this. I got to go. So he followed me out the door. He was like, go ahead over there. She making a fool out of you, I tell you. Got you over there sweating, laying pipe. You go to the man, you lay that bumbuckled pipe.